Hey guys and girls, Board Now back with you. On this video I will be talking about Yellowjackets Season 1 Episode 10. The episode is called Sic Transit Gloria Mundi and it is the Season 1 finale, of course. This will be a full spoiler review just in case you haven't seen the episode, so I'm up to date now ahead of Season 2. And this is a good finale. It's a finale which has grown on me more as I've rewatched it. This is the third time I've watched it now. I've just got off stream watching it. And yeah, it's a good finale. I think it does a good job of tying the season together, but also leaving those question marks open and adding new questions for the next season. And there's some really smart correlations between the past and the present. So you get this stuff surrounding like a high school reunion with the four main characters. And I like the metaphor in the episode of that being something they have to face up to, where Shona says it at one point, no matter what we've been through, this is the most scary thing. And I think what she means is just because they've now got all this baggage, so just showing up to a high school reunion and acting normal is probably the hardest thing in the world, especially when all the eyes are on them for obvious reasons. So that's what we see with that scene where they use the offspring and they all come in, they make a stylish entrance. And they do the whole sort of split dual screen type thing. And it's really cool. It's a nicely done scene. It sort of fits what they're going for, because sometimes those scenes can be a bit cliched and have been overdone. But in this case, I think it does fit what they were looking for. So that's all pretty cool stuff. And I like how it compares with the past and the fallout from like the scary drug trip the previous night. There's something as well about the way like them as teens in the past, they wake up and they're all over the place. They're in the forest and they're the worse for wear after a heavy night. And there's just something about the adults in comparison, like the night after. You could say the night after the whole Shona thing, when she reveals what happens with Adam, or what happened with Adam, and they obviously need Misty to help dispose of the body. So that compared to the drug trip in the past, or you could say the night after the reunion, like quite a heavy reunion, contrasting that. But I'll start with the adults because quite a lot happening with them, and it naturally bleeds into what's happening in the past. But I'll probably end with that stuff. So Misty obviously comes to help. She starts like giving jobs to people, and it's just full-blown classic Misty. First of all, I love the scene with her and Natalie when Misty is basically nicking like supplies from her work to do things. And it's a classic Misty line when Natalie questions, why didn't we just buy cleaning supplies? And she's like, because 12% of all killers are caught buying cleaning supplies. That is such a Misty line and such a Misty thing to actually know that random weird statistics. And so much of the stuff with the adults in this episode just hits the mark so nicely, because I have had more complaints with that stuff during the course of the season than the stuff with the teenage versions. But there's nothing really I can fault in this episode with the adults. So when they're first having this thing, everything Misty is saying is, on the one hand, very entertaining, but also very cringe and just awkward, where she is like making light of what's been going down. And so she enters with, and they're immediately going at her, and she's like, yeah, nice to see you after all this time, Misty. Thanks for helping me dispose of clean up a murder. And then Shona has a couple good lines when she's like, why does everyone keeps calling it a murder? It's not like I planned like the previous night to like meet up with a guy, murder him, and yeah, such and such. But it's pretty good stuff, but it's just really funny but also gross how inappropriate Misty is and just making everyone feel uncomfortable. Because she also has the line to Shona about, Shona, why don't you cut at the body because you're best with knives, obviously, and that's just really awkward. And Thaisa and Natalie are both really good in the scene, like they're really supportive, but Natalie agrees to help her. And then they like have a bit of an awkward conversation when they're doing it, when they're cutting up the body, because Natalie immediately flies into talking about what if Adam's the killer, like he's the main suspect in a way because was the one who blackmailed him, and Shona like still not being truthful about what really happened, but she really want that to become like an even bigger part of the lie. So she's trying to throw Natalie off the scent, says no, he was with me the night Travis was killed, and it's just someone else, or maybe you just have to face up to the fact that it was suicide. He doesn't want to hear that. Vintage Misty, it's just hilarious. He uses like the funeral patients at like the old people's home. She uses that and the coffin to hide like a body part. I think it's the head. He's at the wrong funeral, or she's saying the wrong name because like she like just doesn't care when she's talking to like one of the relatives. So that's all fun stuff, but yeah, it really sells like just how much of a trauma and how much of a stress going to this reunion is after all this time, and now with all this extra stuff hanging over them, because Jeff is there as well, and with what's been going down with him and Shona, it's like especially tough on them probably. So we get to the reunion and Ali reappears. She is, of course, the girl who was crippled at the start of the show in the 90s by Thaisa, which basically ended her chance of going on the trip like to the final. So she brings that up with Jeff, and Randy's there. Randy's the guy I couldn't remember the name of who Shona claimed to Jackie that's the guy who got her impregnated, and we saw him in another scene, which makes sense actually because he saw like he bumped into Shona outside the motel, and it turns out he was working with Jeff to like blackmail them. Ellie's there, and she starts going into this speech about you know I was meant to be on that trip, right? That plane crashed. And Jeff kind of sarcastically says, yeah, it must have been a bummer for you. That was something. And Ali's really funny in this scene because she starts doing this speech about how 25, like the 25th anniversary really means something. It's like, oh, 10-year anniversary, 20-year. It doesn't mean anything because you're having kids, or you're getting over things, or just whatever, but this one really counts. And she just has a really funny like turn of phrase. And one of the things I like most about this show, which appeals a lot to my sensibility, is the cringe stuff and how close to the bone it gets, how it's always treading this line between being really funny, but it's just so awkward and uncomfortable. Then it could easily turn like really messed up and dark the next moment. And that's how some of this Ali stuff feels, because later on she just really goes full-blown cringe. So she gets up on stage at the reunion, and she just brings up the past and Jackie and the fact that she's not there and the tragedy. And it's this really cheesy scene. So it's like she's showing like images of them on the screen, and they're playing this cheesy music. And this cuts to the past as well with the girls in the cabin. and they're all sort of saying grace apart from Jackie. But this is when the past stuff with Jackie starts to correlate with what's happening at the dance. And Ali is just terrible in the scene because she goads Jeff and Shona into coming up on the dance floor and dancing. And it's this whole thing of, if Jackie was here, I know that's what she would have wanted. So it's almost like she's trying to shame them because Jackie didn't make it. She's not around anymore, so it's like, yeah, you two better get up and dance. Like, in a way, Shona's taking her place, but it's a way to like rub that in more. But for appearances, Jeff says, yeah, let's do it, let's play along. So they do have a dance. And I notice also they played the Seal song, Kiss on the Rose, which they also played in the last episode when they were doing like the whole prom thing in the wilderness. So that was a nice little touch. But yeah, that scene is full on cringe. I'll say I'm a little surprised like Ali didn't go a bit further with this stuff. Like, I guess you could say it is just her way of getting revenge for not going and being crippled. Although that particular thing is to do with Thaisa more than any of the others. But I guess it's just showing that she's really bitter. But I did wonder, and I was half expecting there to be a lot more with Ali, and that there would be something really big happening at the reunion. But instead it's just this very cringe sort of stuff, and they're like correlating to the past. But it's all really, really nicely done. The other standout scene from the reunion is Shona threatening Randy, because they bump into each other at the bar, and Randy's being a bit of a douche as always. But when she like turns all serious on him, he realises, oh shit, Jeff told you, and like she's threatening him. She says, if you ever tell anyone of what you two did, I will track you down, I will fuck you up, I will gut you, I think she says. And it's really intimidating. It's been one of the small pleasures of the series to really see those moments where Shona comes out of the box and at least appears quite unhinged, if maybe she isn't really. Certainly compared to some characters she's not, but she does have that in her locker. So those moments have been really fun because it's nice to see Melanie Lynskey get to play those more unhinged style moments where she can actually be quite threatening and intimidating compared to what we've seen for a lot of the first season with her. And yeah, she is scary as hell and puts Randy in his place. And I do like the end line, like before she leaves, where she just says, "You're a really good friend." So that's good. I will say the stuff with Shona, some of that stuff, and the stuff with her like killing the rabbit and feeding it to the family, it probably means then there isn't much more with her when it comes to, oh, is she like a killer or is she a mastermind? Maybe the Ant, the Queen. I don't think she is. I don't think there's anything more sinister with her, just because we have now seen a few examples of this side of her where it and a lot of it can be just put down to trauma, but because you've seen it a few times now, it might just be too obvious if it was her. So in this episode, her big thing is then the local election, the Senate race is coming up. On a knife edge, like she's really unsure if she's going to win or not. She seems pretty negative, then she probably won't win. At the same time, there's more drama at home. Simone comes around to pick up some of Sammy's stuff, but she makes sure then Thaisa's not around when she does it. She doesn't want to see her. Thaisa wins the Senate race. It's a real surprise. You see like other characters like Shona and her family watching on TV. Simone comes around to pick up the stuff, and she starts looking in this secret compartment which is like hidden in the walls, which naturally freaks her out. She finds Biscuit the dog. My God, it's like his head. And there's also a heart. I don't know if that's meant to be his heart, which is even more unnerving if it is. But and just some weird like ritual stuff stretching in that scene, because as she's finding that stuff, it cuts to Thaisa after she's been announced as like the Senate winner, and just the look on her face, like just the way the camera captures her, it does make her look very like sinister and like domineering. The stuff with Misty and Jessica Roberts. Night after the big reunion where Misty's like, oh it was a really great night, and we had shots, and she says to Jessica, like, it just made me realise them people in this town are interested in my story. And once again, this is like typical Misty. It's like this thing of she just like really enjoys the experience of what happened. The others were just like, oh God, this is so awkward. This is so cringe. And I think, in a way, they had a good night because they did get to put a brave face on and sort of stick it to the haters. But at the same time, it was really uncomfortable experience. But it's just so typical that Misty would like, she would revel in it. Like, it's almost like, yes, look at this attention. Because she's offered her a book deal as a way to really get the hell out of there. It's out that she's a fixer for all these rich arseholes who do like really corrupt things, and it's her job to like clean up the mess. So she has this good speech about how, in comparison, like working with Misty, like it's actually pretty small fry in some ways. And she just has this thing of, it's a really shitty job to do morally, but it pays really well. So yeah, she has this line about, if you think my stay at the Caligula Hotel has made me change my opinion on you Misty, like, think again. So, but it's her way of saying, yes, I'll do the book. Talking about who will play her in a film, Misty's getting all excited. And she's like, oh, Meryl Streep, of course, which is really good. And it's so funny because if Yellowjackets goes on for a few more seasons, Meryl Streep is the sort of person who you think could make a cameo at some point. Because it feels like a big enough show at the moment, then maybe she could do that, especially since like actors like that are becoming more involved in TV, like the way Meryl Streep was in Big Little Lies season 2. Lets Jessica go, but then it's all a bit of a ruse. For whatever reason, like maybe she doesn't trust her not to talk, so she drugs her cigarette things away. She crashes, and I do love the final line before she passes out. That explains why she's Natalie with those two end to at the end. The big dramatic end to the episode. To kill herself, she's about to kill herself. And then a group of guys burst into the hotel and kidnap her. And as this is happening, she's being called by Susie. And she doesn't get through, obviously. Susie leaves a message. And she says, I found out who took the money out of Travis's account. And then she says, I think I'm being followed. Yeah, Natalie, who the fuck is Lottie Matthews? We end with the famous shot of her seemingly as the Antler Queen, and her and Misty, which makes sense in a way, and also Van, like out in the wilderness doing this sort of dark worship style thing. And that's the big cliffhanger of the season, is Natalie being kidnapped in the present, Lottie Matthews being mentioned, and then Lottie appearing with Misty and with Van. So jumping to the past again, we see the conclusion really of the Natalie Shona stuff, and that gives a really nice satisfying wrap up, and just showing exactly what happened with Jackie, apart from Misty, who is definitely public enemy number 1, but Jackie probably public enemy number 2. And as they recover from this trip, she's being all quite aggressive and like, what's the matter with you? Why are we all pretending that nothing happened? You had a knife to Travis's throat. And, you know, I've got to say, I do have sympathy with her in this episode, even though she is being a bit of a bitch about it. People like Van are going after her for like what she did with Travis, but Jackie's kind of right. I mean, in comparison, that's small fry compared to what they were doing, even though there are like circumstances, but they all band against her really, and you get this big blow off with her and Shona, and I think this is a really good scene, them having this fight in the cabin, all out there, and Jackie like shows Shona up in front of the others because she says, sleeping with Jeff behind my back. And it's telling that they still take Shona's side. They don't turn on Shona. So this is the reveal to Shona that Jackie read her diaries, and that's how she knows. The others taking Shona's side is probably just something to do with they've got this built-up resentment towards Jackie. It's like they've maybe put up with some of her like bullshit for enough years, so maybe they see it as, well, we're now out in the wilderness, it's a new set of circumstances, and we've just had enough. Like, this isn't soccer out here, like, this is different shit. The acting is so good between these two actors, and the way they face off and go at each other like ripping lumps, because Shona does this whole speech about how it's always been the way Jackie wants, where she just assumes Shona or do the same thing as her, like she'll go to the same college as her, because she has this line about, I don't even like soccer, but it's like that thing of, because they've been best friends and because Jackie's like the captain, it's like she's just sort of wrestled Shona into it. And once again, very relatable stuff. Often best friends feel, especially when one is popular and one not so popular. Line of, are you fucking quoting beaches at me? That she says to Jackie really got me. At one point, Jackie's like, I don't want to see you, get out my sight, I think you should leave. And Shona says, well, that's your problem, maybe you're the one who should leave. And the others just turn against her and they say, yeah, get out. And what's interesting is Ben tries to intervene. It's like, come on guys, no one's throwing anyone out. And it's Lottie who cuts him off. It's like, stay out of this. So once again, that I do like the little breadcrumbs we see in this episode, and how when I rewatch it, I do spot things like that because of what we see with Lottie at the end of the episodes. It does play a little like, okay, she's being a bit of a ringleader there. The question of, is there more to Jackie's death than meets the eye? Jackie's death is handled is really powerful, shocking stuff, because she goes outside, like spends the night outside, and you see Shona looking through the window, feeling a bit guilty, and Taissa says to her, just go and talk to her. And I just love the drama of that, because it's like, will she, won't she talk to her? Especially when you see the outcome the next morning, because things could have been different. And at first they fool me, like that it does look like she does go out there and invites her back in. But as that scene goes on, it becomes clear that it's all in Jackie's head, because she comes in and they've made her hot chocolate. And it's just little by little it becomes clear that no, this isn't really happening. Seals it is like Shona says, I love you, and then they all sort of say, it's like a declaration, we all love you, like Jackie. And that, just the way that's shot and just how cheesy it is, like gives away that no, that this is in her mind. And then in the corner of the room she sees this shadowy figure, and it says, it's good to have you, Jackie, or something. We've been waiting for you a long time. And this got me thinking, because earlier in the episode, Van tells Taissa about these experiences she's been having ever since she had like the near-death experience of supernatural type things where she's experienced, where between like the living world and the dead world, and so I think she does mention a guy, so this could be the same guy that she mentions who Jackie's seen, and so it indicates then Jackie is dead, which we find out the next morning. Gut punch, then Jackie has spent the night outside, and it snowed during the night. Who knows if that's supernatural or if it just happened to snow, and Shona finds her, and again, they've really cast the young actor so well, and Shona's reaction is just so great, and it just adds a layer to the tragedy than like Jackie was, or she could have invited Jackie back in. She could have gone and talked to her and just couldn't, and this is the result. And yeah, it's such a gut punch. Then she finds her out there in the snow and runs towards her, and this series has handled like deaths really well, and the fallout from death and the reaction of the group, because they're all there watching, they're all stunned. And once again, Thaisa, another good character thing is that she's the one who tries to comfort Shona, tries to hold her back, and like she has taken the shine into Shona, and they've developed a little friendship of their own. Travis, because they finally make up in this episode. Natalie wants to like find out how he's doing. Like, she's worried about Travis because of the previous night, and he's being typical, quite masculine, and trying to pass it off like, oh, it's nothing, and just being cold, because he has this really callous line about yeah, I finally got laid, and just trying to stick it to Natalie. And then also there's this thing with Javi, like he's gone missing, so he's looking for him, and at first he just says, no, I don't want your help, Natalie. But then later on he like opens up and apologises for what he did with Jackie, and says, I'm sorry and I love you, and this is them getting back together. But yeah, Javi being missing is another thing, which, so I'm assuming they're going to start looking for him, but that's something we'll pick up with again next season, relating between Jackie in the present and just how hard she's taking this thing with Travis, because we see her going through like his things, and there's the photograph of like his body. Season finale, I think it gets better every time I watch it. It's still not my favourite episode of the season. I would still say that's Doomcoming, the last episode, but it is a good season finale. It's satisfying, and the hook is really strong, the hook for season 2. Just the way everything comes together at the end, and the stuff with Jackie and Shona, in many ways that's the heart of the episode. It answers some questions, but it also creates new ones, and it creates intriguing new ones that you want to see the answer to, and just gives you little bits and pieces to chew on for the new season, which is what you want from serialized TV in a finale. So that's Yellowjackets, my review of season 1. I will return for season 2. Let me know what you think of this finale in the comments below. Like and subscribe as always. Share me out on social media. You can support me on patreon.com/borednow for some extra perks, including X-Files commentaries. And that's fitting. I mentioned that X-Files in this because there's an X-Files reference in this episode. So if you're a fan of the X-Files, you can check out me doing commentaries on that. I also do movie commentaries and various other bits and pieces, so you can get that for just $1 a month if you want to support the channel. But thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you again soon.